always be the case, right? And okay, for just for general knowledge, can you briefly explain what are these generations? What is generation X, Y, Z, or do we have alpha or beta, gamma? I don't know. Baby boomers kind of thing. Okay, roughly, can you just enlighten us a bit?
Okay, now the factor about generation, as the word generation, right? It refers to which era that you are born in, right? And based on study, because of certain era that you are born in, there are certain elements, and things that influence the way being who you are. And all this influence is very important, especially when you are growing up, right? Right. So, for example, baby boomers, right? This is the generation that were born after World War II.
Mm-hmm.
In US, it was World War II. In Malaysia, we call it was still Malaya at that time, Malaya, before independent, before Merdeka, right? We had Japanese occupation for 3.5 years, right? So many may not have known the real history, but everybody do understand, right? There were a lot of damages that was done, right? So many things was destroyed. Things were poor, no economy and all that. So our baby boomers were born under those they were born already. They grew up under those circumstances. Very poor, poverty, right? Scarcity. You want to study? There are many smart baby boomers who wanted to study, but there were no opportunity. It was due to opportunity. It's not by, right? Even though if you have a family who can afford, right? But the nearest school is probably 10 miles away or 10 kilometers away. You got to walk. There may not be any roads or cars available or public transport available. So it ended up that this child cannot go to school, most likely. Just work in the paddy plantation, paddy field, sawah, right? You have the father, it ended up most like that one, right? That was what happened, right? And the families that time was so big, you had 10, 12 siblings, right? If one falls sick, right, it's like, other people have to give up, just to take care of that kind of thing, right? Mm-hmm. So those were the situation. So in the end, if you have a baby boomer who actually got a job, right, they are very appreciative. Why? Because at that point of time, their whole emotional needs is security. It is about bringing food to the table, right? Things were so poor. It's about bringing food to the table, and the parents in those times would tell their children, you have to be appreciative. You have to feel blessed because I bring food to you every day, and every day you eat. Basic. I mean, it may not be chicken. In those days, people don't eat chicken every day. Right? They could only eat chicken once a month, that kind of thing, right? And Chinese, they only eat like chicken maybe on very festive, maybe once a year, some people. Those were the days, right? So, and having said that, when you were born like that, although now the baby boomers in the current situation, right, they are still baby boomer, right? Do they simply splurge money? No, they have the money, right? Do they simply splurge? The answer is not really or no. They will still look at money, right? That's something that, they will hold on to it quite strongly. Yeah, right now, let's go. I skipped 2 generations. Let's contrast it to Gen Y, right? Now, Gen Y in Malaysia, in my study, right, was born after 1985. Not 1980. In US, it was 1980. At least we were 5 years behind time in terms of technology at that point of time, in the 80s. Yeah, and truly, right, in the 80s, US was already world number 1. Silicon Valley was created, developed, right? You have all the IBMs at that point of time, right? All those big so-called technology companies, they have a presence in Silicon Valley. But Malaysia, where were we? We were still agriculture. Not yet, right? Only starting to develop as a country. We are starting to industrialize, right? And Malaysia golden era, right, was in the 1990s, right? Our GDP growth, economy was growing. There were a lot of foreign investors that came in, right, and gave employment. They built factories. They bring in technology. This was Malaysia's golden era, right? And this is where The Gen X actually, were in the workplace and they actually gain employment, right? And they work very hard for that. And Gen Y was just growing young, right? And technology came in, and because this is the golden era, there were lots of money, by everybody. There were lots of money to spend on, right? So in general, Gen Y is the type, in general, right, that because they were born during good times, right? So to them is, things are easy one. Right? Unlike you contrast it with boomers, everything was so difficult, so tough, so poor, Gen X is somewhere in between, right? It's a progression, right? Right? Gen Y is like, everything you have, all you need to do is study hard. That's parents' expectation, right? Right? Those competition, they want you to study hard, they send you this tuition, that tuition, all you need to do is study, right? Right? But our boomers, do they have education? It's not by choice, right? Gen X, some have, some don't have, depending, right? Right? Gen Y, everybody got education, right? But some is like, don't want to study, right? Right? This is the contrast, right? So that is just to give you an overview, right? So based on my study, we were at least 5 years behind, and Multimedia Super Corridor (MSC) was started to be built in 1996. And before 1996, before MSC, we didn't have any infrastructure for technology. That was the most beginning landmark, and we have to thank Tun M, right, for doing all this, right? 1996, we have MSC. Then only, right, 98, 99, 2000 and beyond, right, you will see slowly we are building our own technology. Right, DG came in, Maxis came in, right? Starts to have all these affordable packages. TN started to open, right? Technology came in, and that's when, at that point of time, I think Microsoft just started to came in, and then the early years, of email, you dial in, and then you get that right? Yeah, like dialing, right? Those were the time, right, when our Gen Y was growing up. You see, so that's where those who can afford those rich Gen Y whose parents or have money, right? They will sure buy the latest. That time handphone was Nokia Motorola Ericsson right? Right? They buy right? They will use it. So they were the ones who embraced technology, right? And those not so affordable, probably when they were in the university, slowly they will invest, they will buy. But it is during this era that our Gen Y were exposed to technology, right? And being young at that age, right? For you, I'm sure I've heard your stories also, Johan, right? You said when Microsoft came in, you were so excited, nobody taught you, right? You learned everything all by yourself.
Oh my God! My father bought our computer. Actually, when I was young, very very young, we already have the computer with diskette and. But I think the shift happens in 1995 or 95, 96, where they launched the Windows 95, and my father bought me an Acer Aspire. Very nicely designed, and it was Pentium 1. So that was like, wow. And I learned myself. I just learned myself using all this Microsoft Word, Microsoft. At that time, there's Microsoft Work, Microsoft. I don't use spreadsheet, but I use PowerPoint presentation. And they were at that time they were already movie maker where you can use 3D. You can use some element of moving the animated design. So that I learned by myself. In fact, a few years after that, I have to teach my parents because my parents are like busy working. Then I have to, I can guide them on how to use certain function in Microsoft. So I cannot imagine why do people need to go to Microsoft Excel training or Microsoft Office training. So that's my era. But according to your generation, your definition, Gen Y is 1985 and above in Malaysia.
Yes, in Malaysia, right?
In Malaysia, right? So meaning that I can be Gen X in your definition and Gen Y in US definition. So because I'm in between there. So I grew up in a very digital, cassette kind of era, and in the university I started to use internet. So we explored ourselves.